and maybe thereafter we can sort of provide you some additional information. So therefore, the potential growth and the real rate have to be seen in, the real rate has to be seen in that context. I'm not reaching any conclusion, but I'm just saying that the real rate has to be looked in that from that perspective. But essentially, as rightly pointed out by the Deputy Governor, it is the level of inflation going forward, 1 year ahead, where the inflation is likely to be. That is what really guides us in our journey of attaining price stability.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Dinesh Unnikrishnan from Money Control.
Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you, Governor. I just wanted to know, what is your view on the electoral bonds data that is published by the Election Commission of India following the Supreme Court directive? So if you look at it, there are many cases where companies have bought electoral bonds many times more than their net worth and profit. And also there are quite a few cases where companies which are even in losses, they have bought quite a few, about 600 crores worth electoral bonds. That is the that. Have you looked at this data? Is there a possibility that RBI, looking at that, these companies probably would have been used by others as a channel for funding?
No, on electoral bonds, we have no comments. It's a Supreme Court judgment which has to be complied with, and which has been, in pursuance of the Supreme Court judgment, I think the bank involved, the State Bank, has taken the required action. So we have no comments on the Supreme Court judgment or on the issue of electoral bonds. And with regard to the issues you are pointing it out, that the net worth vis-a-vis how much they have contributed, these are issues which are not in the domain of the Reserve Bank.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Vishwanath Nair from NDTV Profit.
Thank you, sir. Governor, you spoke about the real rates in detail, but the bottom line is you're not seeing 4% in FY25, at least according to your projections at this point in time. There was hope that when the US Federal Reserve supposedly is going to cut rates in June, then the RBI might follow. Are we looking at any kind of any indication of a rate cut this financial year or not? That's my primary question.
You see, with regard to the rate cut this year, I cannot give you a forward guidance. In fact, countries which give dot plots also, the dot plots keep changing from meeting to meeting. So with regard to rate cut or whatever rate action, let me not say rate cut, but whatever rate action, it is linked to the evolving path of inflation. So on that, I cannot give you any forward guidance. And the other point which you mentioned about expectation linked to US rate cut, I think, as I have said on number of occasions earlier, our monetary policy is primarily guided and determined by our domestic situations. So we do not just follow the footsteps of the US Fed. In fact, if you just recall in the past several months or past few years in particular, I can talk about. We did our rate cuts, our rate cut which we did in 2019, or the beginning of the rate increase which we did in 2022. They did not really, they actually preceded US Fed action. So therefore, our policy is governed and determined primarily by domestic circumstances.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Anand Adhikari from Business Today. Let's
I think I said very clearly that we would like the elephant to return to the forest and stay there on a durable basis. And I reiterated by saying that we would like inflation to align with the target on a durable basis. So I think that needs no further elaboration. That's for you to judge.
I'll move on to Mr. Shayan Ghosh from the Mint. So that's it.
Good afternoon, Governor. I wanted to ask, so the Prime Minister on a Monday spoke of RBI's priority of growth. He, of course, then went on to add trust and stability. Does the government now want RBI to prioritize growth over inflation? Is that the reading?
I think you have answered the question. The Prime Minister talked about growth. The Prime Minister also talked about stability and trust. So therefore, my understanding is that what the Prime Minister said is in line with what is provided in the RBI Act with regard to inflation targeting.
Sorry, if I may add, so he led with growth, so I thought.
Sorry?
He led with growth and then went on to add, so I thought.
Well, I mean, you can make any nuance, ask a nuanced question. Yeah, and he also used the word balance. If you recall, he also talked about balance. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Swati Bhatt from Reuters.
Thank you, Yogesh sir. So I had a very small question. Do you think the moderate falling core inflation is indicative of weak consumer demand? Is that something that is a concern at your end? And you've already answered the question on forex reserves earlier. Just a side note. So there is a cost to building reserves. Are you considering that cost as well? And how are you looking at that? And are you looking to continue building gold reserves? Thank you.
We are building up gold reserves. The data, is released from time to time. We are building gold reserves. You can compare, year after year, what is the gold reserve that the Reserve Bank is holding. So that's a part of our, reserve deployment. And what was the other question? Sorry?
If you continue raising reserves, the cost of holding these reserves on the other hand.
No, all aspects are obviously, all aspects are assessed. All aspects while building up the reserves are assessed, and then we take a decision.
Thank you, sir.
No, demand, you said consumption, you say weaker consumption. I think in the monetary policy I have said you have asked 3-4 questions, including the, the derivative, the exchange. Now the point is, what was that you said? So because you're asking so many questions, I'm getting mixed up. No, I think in the policy statement I have said very clearly that urban consumption remains strong and rural consumption is, has recovered and is gaining. So it's there in the policy statement.
So I'll move on to Mr. Manojit Saha from the Business Standard. That's it.
Thank you.
He asked a question.
No, that was on currency derivatives.
Happy to skip.
Yeah.
The growth projection for FY25, you have kept it at 7%. And at the same time, you have earlier said FY24 could be closer to 8%. What will slow down growth in the current financial year? As you also said the average growth was closer to 8% in the last 3 years, but this year you're projecting 7%. So what will slow down growth in the current financial year from the 8%?
The MPR has been released today. I think MPR has been released or will be released today. The monetary policy report should be getting uploaded now. It is already uploaded, yeah. So the MPR is already uploaded, so you can have a look at it. So maybe Dr. Michael Patra can further amplify.
The 8% will provide a base effect onto 24-25. But the momentum is very strong. It's still as strong as it is in 23-24. Because it's a year-on-year growth rate. Not an
Effect essentially you're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to this side. I'll invite Mr. Ashish Agishe from PTI.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, you in the end of your speech, you mentioned about the goal being in sight on inflation. You also gave us the target for FY25, your expectations for FY25. So, if 4% is the goal, like what sort of path do you see on inflation going ahead?
I think we have given.
See the target in sight.
Yeah, but we have given the quarterly projections also, no? For the next year, we have given the quarterly projections. I think Q2 it comes to 3.8%, but thereafter again it goes up. And there are so many uncertainties between now and each of these quarters. So we will be watchful. and watchful not on a watchful of the current prevailing inflation as well as watchful of what the outlook appears. You know what how the outlook appears. So based on that, we will take a decision.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Piyush Shukla from the Financial Express.
Good afternoon, Governor, DGs, and Yogesh ji. So very quickly, just you have allowed SFBs to deal in rupee interest rate derivative products today. There is also an ask that they want to shed their small finance tag because people feel a bit hesitant towards banking with such names. Apart from that, there are certain regulatory relaxations also being sought on PSL CRAR. So what is your view in this regard, sir? And separately, SRO draft framework has come out. When can we expect the final framework to come out? Are you on board with them having dual mechanism? You had said in your circular that there needs to be a consensus on the membership criteria and dual SROs. So.
Now, thank you for moving to the part B of the MPC resolution, because there are 7 other announcements which have been made, each of them very important. And on the first part about the SFB thing, I will request Deputy Governor Rajeshwar Rao to reply. And on the FinTech SRO, I would request Deputy Governor Ravi Shankar to reply.
Thank you, Piyush, for that question. See, SFBs actually have been conceptualized as a differentiated bank with a specific objective. And the tag of having an SFB after the name is a key part of that differentiator. So I don't think there is any requirement to modify that and at this point in time. Also, the objective of the SFB is to further financial inclusion among the underserved and the unserved through using high-tech and low-cost operations. And meeting the priority sector norms, etc., is a key part of this entire process. So I think the norms continue to be at that level for the priority, for the SFBs.
On the SRO, we have received the comments. The last date was, as you know, the end of February.
This is FinTech SRO.
FinTech SROs. We have received the comments. We are examining those comments. We will be out with a framework based on which entities can apply for SROs. The details of that framework, please wait until we announce it. You know, the various issues that we had put out in the draft framework, where, you know, whether there would be one or more SROs and what would be the membership criteria and so on, we'll finalize based on the feedback. Please wait for the final framework to come out. Thank you.
And let me supplement by saying that the framework, we expect to release it, we hope, we propose to release it before the end of April. And as mentioned by me in the last Global FinTech Festival, that in the next year's festival, that is in 2024 Global FinTech Festival, we would like one SRO relating to FinTech to be operational. So we are working towards that.
Thank you, sirs. अब मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा आकाशवाणी से श्री जीवन भाव सर.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर. CBDC का पायलट प्रोसेसिंग प्रोजेक्ट जो हमारा चल रहा है, तो उसकी वर्तमान स्थिति क्या है वो हमें जानने में इंटरेस्ट है. और साथ में UPI के साथ हमने इसको इंटरऑपरेबल किया है, तो जो इनकी जो ट्रांजैक्शंस है, ट्रांजैक्शंस में कितनी बढ़ोतरी हुई है?
इस प्रश्न का उत्तर मैं डिप्टी गवर्नर रविशंकर जी को उत्तर देने के लिए रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा.
इंटरऑपरेबल करने के बाद उसका वॉल्यूम्स इंक्रीज किए हैं. जैसे कि मैं पहले भी बताया हूँ, ऑब्जेक्टिव यही है पायलट्स के कि वेरियस ऑल्टरनेटिव टेक्नोलॉजीज हो, वेरियस ऑल्टरनेटिव यूज़ केसेस हो, वो ट्राई किया जाए. जैसे कि पिछले साल हम बताए थे, हम लोग ये टेस्ट करना चाहते हैं कि सिस्टम कितना रेजिलिएंट है अगर ट्रांजैक्शन 1 मिलियन को बढ़ाया जाता है. तो वो टारगेट रखे थे एंड ऑफ द ईयर तक. वो टारगेट अचीव भी कर लिए, उसमें टेस्ट किए, और वो टारगेट अचीव करने में इंटरऑपरेबिलिटी विथ UPI काफ़ी काम में आया. उसके बाद वॉल्यूम्स उतना नहीं है, नीचे आए हैं. लेकिन एक चीज़ देखने को मिली है कि वॉल्यूम्स ज़्यादा P2P से P2M को शिफ्ट हो रहे हैं, क्योंकि ज़्यादा मर्चेंट्स अवेलेबल हैं. अभी का डेटा का हिसाब से करीब 46 लाख यूज़र्स हैं और 4 लाख मर्चेंट्स हैं. सो टोटल अबाउट 50 लाख पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं. टोटल ट्रांजैक्शंस अभी तक करीब 2.2 करोड़ तक हुआ है. पिछले पॉलिसी में हम लोग प्रोग्रामेबिलिटी अनाउंस किए थे. पहला प्रोग्रामेबिलिटी का यूज़ केस आज शुरू हुआ है। तो उसके बारे में बाद में बताएंगे। ये फार्मर को CBDC ट्रांसफ़र करने का यूज़ केस है जो कि वो अपना इनपुट्स के लिए ही यूज़ कर सकते हैं। दूसरा केसेस अभी बन रहे हैं, वो धीरे धीरे ग्रेजुअली वो भी हम लोग इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे। एक और अनाउंस पिछले बार जो किए थे ऑफलाइन यूजर्स जो CBDC का, वो ऑफलाइन यूजर्स अभी वो क्लोज्ड ग्रुप में विद इन बैंक्स अभी टेस्ट कर रहे हैं। वो डेवलप हो गया है, टेस्ट चालू है। एक बार वो सेटल कर जाता है तो उसको भी ओपन कर देंगे बाहर के लिए। थैंक यू।
धन्यवाद महोदय। अब मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा ब्रजेश कुमार, जी बिजनेस न्यूज़ से।
सर मेरा सवाल ये होगा कि हाल के दिनों में आपने 2 NBFCs पे एक्शन लिया है, एक गोल्ड लोन से जुड़ा था और एक कैपिटल मार्केट की फाइनेंसिंग से। तो जो गोल्ड लोन का इशू है उसमें क्या ये आपको लगता है कि कहीं इंडस्ट्री वाइड प्रैक्टिस में समस्या है और इस पर कोई नई पॉलिसी लाना चाहेंगे? ऐसी ही कोई पॉलिसी की एक्सपेक्टेशन क्या जो कैपिटल मार्केट से जुड़ी NBFCs हैं उनके लिए भी सोचा जा रहा है क्या?
देखिए, इंडिविजुअल एंटिटी रिलेटेड केसेस के बारे में तो मैं यहाँ पे रिप्लाई हमेशा प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में अवॉइड करते हैं, लेकिन जनरली मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि हमारा जो सुपरविजन मशीनरी है RBI का, वो रेगुलरली हम लोग इसको बैंक्स हो, NBFCs हो, जितने लेंडर्स हो, उनको रेगुलरली हमारा सुपरविजन करते रहते हैं। और जहाँ पे हमको दिखा कुछ डिविएशन हो रहा है, कुछ कंप्लायंस में और रेगुलेटरी रिक्वायरमेंट्स में मेजर डिविएशंस हो रहा है, पहले हमारा प्रयत्न ये रहता है कि उनके साथ डायरेक्टली उनको बायलैटरली सेंसिटाइज करें और उनके साथ काम करें और उनको इम्प्रेस करें कि भाई आप करेक्टिव एक्शन ले लीजिए। उनके साथ हम काम करते हैं, जब देखते हैं प्रोग्रेस नॉट अप टू द मार्क, फिर हम उसके ऊपर कुछ सुपरवाइजरी रेस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाते हैं। बट एज अ पार्ट ऑफ सुपरविजन हम पूरा सिस्टम का और सिस्टम में जितने प्लेयर्स हैं, सब पर्टिकुलरली मेजर प्लेयर्स जितना है, उनका हम रेगुलरली रिव्यू सुपरविजन करते रहते हैं। तो मैं ये नहीं कहना चाहूँगा कि ये एक सिस्टम वाइड प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि हमने सबको सुपरवाइज किया हुआ है। आउटलायर केसेस में ही सिर्फ हम एक्शन लेते हैं।
Cash dispersals for gold loans are also high. IFL also, right after the action from you, said, this is the common practice on the street. You're saying it's one player, perhaps it's a wider practice. So a larger message from
Actually, no, there's a paragraph on, today in my statement, there is a paragraph where I have talked about focus on governance, focus on compliance to regulatory requirements. And I have also ended that para by saying that financial stability is is a joint responsibility of all stakeholders, and stakeholders would include the regulator as well as the regulated entities. We supervise all entities, all major entities. Wherever we see problem, we first directly engage with the particular entity to see that corrective actions are taken. Where we see that the problems are huge or the problems are persistent, then only we act. Now let me say that I am not commenting on the cases where we have taken action. And this whole perception that against how many entities we have now supervisory restrictions imposed. We have about 90 odd banks. We have about more than 9,000 NBFCs. Our action is against 2 NBFCs and 1 payment bank. So, spate of regulatory or supervisory action, I think would not be correct way of describing the situation. I think it has to be seen in the total context.
धन्यवाद महोदय। अब मैं अनुराग शाह, ET स्वदेश से।
नमस्ते सर। सर मेरा सवाल जो है पिछली पॉलिसी वाला ही है। पिछली बार 2 सवाल पूछ लिए थे तो समय की कमी की वजह से आपने एक का ही जवाब दिया था। सर जिस तरह से जो
क्या कहा? दोबारा बताएंगे, मैं मिस कर गया।
नहीं नहीं सर, मैंने सर जो अभी सवाल पूछने जा रहा हूँ पिछली पॉलिसी में भी पूछा था, लेकिन 2 सवाल पूछ लिए थे और समय की कमी थी तो आपने एक का ही जवाब दिया था, तो वही सवाल वापस दोहरा रहा हूँ सर। पर्सनल लोन से जुड़ी हुई जो चिंता आरबीआई की थी, जिसमें रिस्क वेटेज भी बढ़ाया गया था, और उसके अलावा भी जो जिस तरह से लोन बांटे जाते हैं, हम में से सब इस बात से पीड़ित है कि हर दिन 3-4 कॉल आते हैं पर्सनल लोन के लिए, और बाकी लोन का भी आप देखो अब तो खुल्लम खुल्ला बैंकें कह रही कि आप होम लोन का जो टॉपअप है वो ले लीजिए और उसके बाद उस पैसे का आप वेकेशन पे चले जाइए, ये ओपनली हो रहा है। तो जो एंड यूज नहीं हो रहा है तो उसको लेकर कहीं ना कहीं रिजर्व बैंक चिंतित है, किस तरह का आपका मानना है?
आई थिंक डीजी स्वामीनाथन, मैं आपसे अनुरोध करूंगा कि आप इसका रिप्लाई दे दें। हिंदी में अगर दे सकते हैं तो दे दो, इंग्लिश में भी बोल दीजिए। ठीक है।
Misunderstood, so I think I would prefer to see, absolutely, credit growth is one part, and we keep watch on the segmental growth as well, and wherever the segments have shown an outlier growth, that we initiate certain measures to ensure that they are contained. But your question regarding the end use of funds is something which is part of our regulatory framework, that every regulated entity is expected to monitor the end use of funds and then finance only such of those activities for which the purpose is stated explicitly and it's not used for speculative purposes, etc. So this is something which we will examine as part of our supervisory steps, and in case we observe any egregious or outlier behavior, and we will take action in proportion to the violation that we observe. That's what I would like to say at this point in time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. With your permission, last 2 questions, sir. Okay. Hamsini Karthik from the Hindu Business Line.
Hi. Thank you, sir. My question is with regards to transmission of rates. And as much as this is at prerogative of banks, what is possibly also happening is that fresh lending is happening at rates lower than what prevailed last year. And a lot of borrowers on the retail side are making use of it very judiciously. On the MCLR side, which is also the prevailing rate for most of the corporates, continues to be the prevailing rates for most of the non-retail loans, banks are not nudging much. It's not changed in the last 1 year significantly. But on the other hand, the Reserve Bank of India is particular that there is a reasonable amount of transmission that continues to happen before which any action can take place. Aren't we getting to a zone of standstill as far as rate transmission is concerned?
I think, Michael, you can take that.
So please look at the monetary policy report where the data are provided. If you look at the transmission over a period of time, not in a single point in time, let's say April to February, there is still transmission going on. In fact, in January, there were 13 basis points of increase in fresh loans. So we are still seeing a little bit of transmission going through, and we feel that as the mobilizing of deposits takes place at higher and higher rates, there will be a further transmission to lending rates. So we are still seeing transmission.
Just a clarification, should we expect that deposits, there is still runway for banks to increase deposits? Because banks come back to us saying that they've peaked on deposit rates. What do you see? How do you see the picture there?
No, we see a structural deficit between credit and deposits, and that is why we are seeing a flurry of efforts to raise bulk deposits. So there is still a need for deposits, and these deposits come at a higher rate than the retail deposits. So they will, one day they will try to protect their NIMs, and therefore they will pass a little bit more.
Thank you.
I think Deputy Governor Swaminathan may like to add something.
Just to supplement on that, ultimately these kind of actions also have to be seen in terms of the proportion and the mix of the loans that we have. As you mentioned about even today, 50 to 53% of the loans only are linked to the external benchmark, where the transmission can be near real time. The remaining 47% which is linked to various benchmarks will happen over a period of time. The second aspect is also that there is a competition for good quality business. So obviously the banks will take a business call in terms of what sort of spread they would like to maintain, and if there is some sacrifice in spread happens, it may impact the effective interest rate. But as DG Patra explained, that it is very clear that the transmission is playing out, and we'll have to see it over a period of time, and we would like this to continue in that manner. And As regards the deposits, we do see that banks are quite active in terms of their purpose in terms of mobilizing deposits, because there is 3.5% gap that is visible for more than a year's time now. And also we are seeing that the customers are also becoming price sensitive. There's a significant movement towards the term deposits. The proportion of CASA is declining as a part of the total deposits. So we would we will continue to watch the data in terms of its transmission, but moreover, it will also be a business call in terms of what sort of market share and share in the incremental deposit or the loan market the entities would like to maintain. So it will be a combination of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last question to Mr. Hitesh Vyas from the Indian Express.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, what is the crude price assumption you have taken in your projection?
I think it's given in the MPR. You can mention.
Okay.
How much we have said? 85? We have taken $85 per barrel.
Thank you, sir. With this, we come to the close of the first press conference of year 2024-25. Thank you all for being here and making an interactive session. I thank the top management of Reserve Bank for patiently answering all the questions. Thank you and see you soon.
Thank you और आप सबको नए आर्थिक वर्ष के लिए बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं. Thank you.